So another thing that happened after we were off the air yesterday or the other day was Aaron Ekblad was suspended until Game 3 of the first round.
If they make it,
if
right,
they make it,
the Panthers
still a month.
Yeah,
no, they're different.
Yeah.
They're not
what's weird about this?
frauds.
I just want to say, so it was for performance enhancing substances. So what's so strange is that the NHL technically counts playoff games as 2 games. So I'm like, does that 18th and 19th, or sorry, 19th and 20th game, does that actually just count for 1 game and he'll be back for game 2?
No, the 2 games thing in the playoffs is just kind of how Peros and his crew evaluate suspensions that happen during the playoffs. It's not like a thing that's actually written. It's just the philosophy behind it is that playoff games are worth more, so they kind of don't suspend as
Stop breaking the law, asshole!
So here's my other one. What if they're like, well, no, it doesn't. It's technically a regular season suspension, so he'll be suspended game 1 and 2 next year,
that's also
but not for the playoffs.
Okay, the Department of Player Safety suspends players like a kid in your elementary school who sucks to play with.
Who just makes up the rules
Yeah.
as the game
I
goes
brought the
along.
ball, so it's my rules.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Great.
Yeah.
And then-
if you hit the ball against the fence, then it's a turnover, and they just made it up because they wanted the ball.
Yeah.
And the next day, there's 7 balls because everyone brought one because they don't want you to make your head ass rules.
Yeah.
Ralph, you piece of shit.
Who's Ralph?
This is Ralph's the name of the kid.
Oh, okay.
'Cause kids these days are named Ralph, right?
The suspension's very interesting from like a few different standpoints. The salary cap implication is very funky because I don't want to conspiracy theory this, but if they had suspended him 4 days earlier, the Florida Panthers have the opportunity to use that salary cap space because the suspension is lifted within the playoffs. They don't have to maintain the room to bring back Ekblad, so they would have been able to utilize that salary cap space, and then the new player they add could have just been on the roster for the playoffs.
And I saw the observation made, not from me. I wouldn't say this out loud. Heavens no. The Seth Jones trade was very conveniently timed. It was very conveniently timed. I'm not Adam. I think what you think I'm implying is that they knew something was coming and that's why they made the trade. And frankly, I'm appalled you would make that accusation. Frankly, I think that's wrong of you to do to me on my birthday.
I would be not shocked if the NHL gave the Panthers the heads up on that.
What? Whoa! I would be. Adam, they have integrity. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think it even has to be the NHL to give them the heads up. I think Aaron Ekblad himself probably knew this was coming and informed the Panthers. So,
And you know what? They probably were like, we'll give you the trade deadline to figure this out.
yeah, and I wonder, this is the NHL in a nutshell where we don't get more information on these issues. Like, we don't even know what substance he was suspended for, when he failed the drug test, when they decided on the suspension. There's no clarification from the NHL side to not let us go down these rabbit holes and possibilities where, like, hey, they knew this was coming, so they traded for Seth Jones. They knew this was coming, so they delayed it till after the trade deadline. We just have nothing from the NHL side, so we're allowed to speculate on all these things because you have not given us a yes or no on either side. And that's just how the NHL is always going to be run, as long as Gary and his friends are always running it, and that's how it's been run till this point, which is a shame.
Listen, Dick Pound, who is don't censor me. That's the name of a person. He's what is he like?
Head of the anti-doping for the IOC.
Yeah, head of anti-doping.
Was,
He
anyway.
talked about how like the NHL's drug testing policy is like the biggest joke, and we all said, "Shut up, Dick," because Dick Pound acts like a guy named Dick Pound, and so no one likes him. However, you might be right. Like, I think the reason you're not seeing more of a stink being kicked up, like, okay, I'll give you 2 teams who should be all over the very fascinating timeline of this: the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning should be all over this. And I think they might not be. And I think all 31 other teams in the league might not be, because
It would be a shame if you got a bunch of not so random drug tests next year.
yeah, Yeah, I think they see a bunch of clear cups with orange lids and they go, "Oh shit!"
Yeah. So this hasn't happened, by the way, in 6 years. But I just thought you'd find
An entire league, 700 plus skaters.
what Ekblad
6 years, all of them totally clean. Don't worry.
He said the news that I had a failed random drug test was a shock. Ultimately, it was a shock. It was a shock to everybody. Let's be honest, because I mean, who gets caught? But anyway,
It's not a drug test, it's an IQ test.
ultimately, I made a mistake by taking something to help me recover from recent injuries without first checking with the proper medical and team personnel. I have let my teammates, the Panthers organizations, and our great fans down. For that, I am truly sorry. I've accepted responsibility for my mistake. Fully prepared to return when my suspension is over. I have learned a hard lesson and cannot wait to be back with my teammates. Now, I want to say this. NHL players, and you know, you can't paint with a totally broad brush. Everybody's different, but like they're pretty attuned to their bodies and they're pretty aware of things that, you know, and listen, like,
I mean, if any player should be taking steroids, it's NHL players.
well,
Because 82 games of full contact is insanity. It's insanity.
yeah.
I don't know how anyone gets through.
So listen, is there shenanigans? There's always shenanigans. It's the NHL. But what it does do is it gives Aaron Ekblad a really nice rest right before the playoffs. And it's just what the Panthers ordered. Like, you know, you got Marchand out, you got Tkachuk out. Now you got Ekblad out. The team's still winning. Doesn't seem to matter. And they're all going to be as fresh as they possibly can be for the playoffs.
Who won, Boston or Florida? All I saw was the fight
Let me find out.
where Sam Bennett lost, and it was funny.
Oh, to Zadorov?
Yeah, he lost.
Boston won.
Boston won. He lost a fight to Zadorov because he refused to let go of Pasternak.
Yeah. That's good, right?
Which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's a key opportunity for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who play tomorrow night against the Florida Panthers.
You have to.
You got to win that game. Jesse, have you any thoughts on Aaron Ekblad, or shall I move on?
There's a few other things, like little things to go into there. One, yeah, I think it's an opportunity for Tampa and the Toronto to take this division. It's not as cut and dry as just like, hey, they get a little break here, because you're coming back cold in the playoffs. Like Aaron Ekblad's just being thrown into game 3 of the playoffs. It's not going to be so easy, but he's going to be like getting ready each time. Like he's going to be ready to go, but it's still going to be an adjustment period. So we'll see how Florida can contend with that. And Brad Marchand is still out a couple weeks. We don't know. He doesn't have a return time yet, so he's going to be shaky going into the playoffs. We don't know how much hockey he's going to play, so there's some adjustments there.
They wanted to win the division too.
Yeah, Tampa, Toronto, get ready, win this thing. This is your chance. And then the doping side of things from the NHL. It's always been, I don't know what the right word is. It's always been some sort of a facade that they're actually trying to catch these players. I think the way they do the testing illustrates that we have this in place because we need to, from a legal perspective and to adhere to government regulations, but they don't want to catch guys.
No.
They do testing team-wide one time in training camp and one time during the regular season. So it's random when you get picked in training camp and what time you get picked during the regular season. So, but it's only once per team in each of those areas. And then individual players get randomly tested. I think it's a maximum of 3 times. Some players don't get tested at all because it's random, but a maximum of 3 times during a regular season. And then you can get selected during the playoffs as well. So if you had reached those 3 thresholds at some time in the regular season, like your carte blanche, you're also not allowed to be tested on a game day. So I don't know how people out there are so in tune with sports science, but there are things you can take from one day to another that can enhance your performance. So if you were to take something and you know you can't be tested on a game day, you could just flush it through your system in that way. Or if you're just tested, then you have weeks or months to do whatever you need to do to your body for that certain amount of period because you know you're not going to be tested again. And during the offseason, only a maximum of 60 players are allowed to be tested at random during the offseason at any point.
My question with that is always like, what if a player's like with his family and they rented a house in Italy for a month or something? You got to fly back and take a test? Like,
right.
I'd be like, no, come find me. Come find me. I'm doing my HGH in Italy. Thank you very much. On the Amalfi Coast.
With how sparse the NHL is with testing, they're not trying to catch these players. Things are just in place for the sake of being in place. And if you get caught, that means you really fucked up.
Well,
At the end of the day.
I'm really missing the point here, but I'm trying to think of all the doping cases in the NHL, like in my memory, and there's very few. They're all defensemen.
Interesting.
Aaron Ekblad, Nate Schmidt was most recent in 2018, 17.
I believe.
Sean Hill, Brian Berard, are all defensemen. Jose Theodore got bit, but do you remember that?
No, barely. I remember Sean Hill and Brian Berard though.
But it was embarrassing for him because, like, what? How come you tested positive? How come you tested positive? And finally, he had to be like, "I'm going bald." Like, he took some sort of hair supplement.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's always got some excuse.
Yeah.
If you pay attention to boxing or UFC, which I don't anymore, and you'd know that if you listen to SDP VIP, but they always have the most ludicrous reasons for why they tested positive.
Yeah.
I want to say Nate Schmidt pulled the Canelo Alvarez and said, "Oh, I had tainted meat."
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And John Jones, his excuse, I believe, was gas station dick pills.
Right.
And
Well,
it's a clip I saw from Joe Rogan. No, I didn't willingly turn on a full episode of Joe Rogan. And Joe was basically like, "Well, how come it happened?" And John gave a very unsatisfactory answer. And Joe pushed him like he does with all his guests. That's a joke.
So listen, Aaron Ekblad will be back. My question was and Mark Lazarus and Zach Powell did a little breakdown of this in the Athletic, which is confusingly now NewYorkTimes.com/athletic. I don't know why they did that, but anyway, they said, will this hurt his value going into free agency? And I'm like, gigantic Stanley Cup winning, 30 assists in 56 games. Yeah, I don't think so. This will, as an unrestricted free agent this year, they'll be like, "Cool, man. Did that happen? Oh, I forgot." Pff, he's going to get $1 billion.
When was the last time you ever heard of Nate Schmidt? Oh, very recently, because he's still in the league.
Yeah, whatever contract was out there for Aaron Ekblad is still out there.
Yeah, of course.
That contract value or amount has not changed.
Well, how long is the list of NHL players to test positive twice?
It's zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
It was 2018, the Nate Schmidt.
Nah, there you go.
And I don't know if you mentioned Sean Horcroft before that.
Sean Horgan. Hey, a forward. What year was that?
That was 2016.
Oh, okay.
That was the last case before Schmidt.
There you go. All right. Well, so the most recent non-defenseman was nearly a decade ago.
2016,
Yeah.
Sean Horcroft, who was 37.
Yeah. No, and wow, that's old.
He had admitted that he had taken something while trying to recover from an injury.
Yeah. Well, I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect. Hey, listen, I wasn't just juicing. Like, I'm hurt. I tried to get better.
And just to go off what I just said, I think that happens quite often, and a lot of players take a lot of things to recover from injuries.
Sure.
And they are very smart about it.